Employee Representation on the Board. Welcome to the Better Boards podcast series, the podcast for chairs, CEOs, non-executive directors, company secretaries, and their advisors. Every episode is filled with practical insights and learnings from those inside boardrooms. We discuss what really matters and highlight actionable steps you can take to enhance the performance of your board. In this episode, we are discussing the concept of employee representation. It's something specific on German boards, but there might be some issues that spark ideas for global boards, because we know also in the one-tier system that more and more boards have an employee representative, mostly in form of a director. A director who basically talks on a regular basis with employees, goes to sites, and brings the perspective of employees back to the board. But there's another concept, and that is how it's done in Germany. Not everything goes well at the moment in Germany, as many of our listeners know, but all we want to achieve with every episode is to spark ideas, contribute to the discussion. I'm delighted to talk with Gabriele Bornemann. Gabriele Bornemann has set up a company called Management Alliance, where she sets new standards in the qualification of supervisory board members. Prior to that, Gabriele worked in industry and finance for more than 25 years, where she was responsible for investor relations, M&A, risk management, and strategy. Gabriele, thank you so much for contributing to the Better Boards podcast series.
Thank you for the invitation, Sabine.
Gabriele, we have a really interesting topic, and I know around the globe, quite some boards from time to time are thinking about inviting a labor representative to the board. But some international listeners, for some, it's an absolute horror story. Yeah, my goodness. Shall we really have one of those on our board? You are operating in Germany, where it's common practice. Tell us a little bit about this concept. Where does it come from and how does it work?
Yes, thank you, Sabine. It's really a specific topic to have labor representatives in the supervisory board. And I think it's very specific to understand where it's coming from. The history shows that there is a deep interest to have the interest of the laborers represented also in management decisions. And this is the reason why we have up to some employee sizes of the companies, different concepts, participation of employees in the supervisory board. It's very specific in Germany because we have two different models. The first model is that we have 2/3 shareholder representatives and 1/3 employee representatives in the board, but only if the company has a size between 500 and 2,000 employees.
Okay.
If companies have more than 2,000 employees, then we have equal participation in the board. That means half of them are shareholder representatives and the other half are employee representatives.
And tell us a bit how this works in practice.
I think it's a really difficult question how it works in practice because it depends. It depends, open speaking, from the quality and the position of the chairman in the supervisory board. We see some companies which have problems with the labor representatives in the supervisory board, for example, Volkswagen. Volkswagen is a typical German company where the labor representative have a deep influence in management decisions. And sometimes this is not the best shape for the company, especially if we have international business models. For example, the Volkswagen business model should be more and more international, and maybe we have to close some locations and shop floor locations in Germany. And if the German interests are so much represented in a supervisory board, we could have a conflict of interest in management decisions. This is a typical example, I would say, where we have conflict of interest due to employee representatives in the supervisory board model.
And that is probably the key concern international managers might have or have experienced themselves when they try to have an influence on German boards.
Yes, this is a key concern, and it's related to, from my opinion, in a mistake by law, because we only have German employee representatives or mainly German employee representatives in the board. Should we have international employees in the board, we could open also the view of international business models, and then we can integrate the employee perspective from an international perspective as well in the board work.
No, that's a very, very good point. So what are actually the advantages? Where you see the advantages?
The advantage of employee representatives in the board are related to our German system, because we have the two-tier system in Germany, and that means that usually the board members have no direct contact to the companies or company employees. If we want to get any information, we always have to ask the management board how we get the information. There is no direct contact to the employees. And this is the most important advantage of the employer representatives in the board, because they bring the employee perspective into the board without any, I will say, shaping opinions by the management board.
No, that makes sense. And you already alluded to the disadvantages. What do you think? How does this concept need to evolve in the future?
I think the major point in involving for the future is getting more and more international, also on the level of the supervisory board. That means that we would need also international employee representatives in the board. And not only that we are speaking about internationality on the shareholder side, so that we also think about the same level of competences and diversity, also coming from the international perspective on the employee side.
So what shall our international listeners who are thinking about the concept, what can they take away from this? If they're thinking, does it make sense for them to invite a labor representative to the board?
I think it makes absolutely sense to integrate also the employee perspective into the board, but it's very important that you have a clear governance about the collaboration between shareholder representatives and employee representatives. The first thing is that it's very important that you have a strong chairman of the board, because the chairman is the relevant person for just simple things about the collaboration of between the two banks. And on the other hand, I just mentioned it before, if you think about employee representatives, you have to think about the business model and how international the business model should be improved and involved in the future. So if you have an international footprint, from my perspective, you also need international employees in the board.
I mean, I see in other countries where we work, not only in Germany, but we also see it in the UK, in the Netherlands, in Switzerland. In every country, there is a disproportionate number of course, natives on the board, even if the companies do not earn their money, do not generate their money in these countries. Isn't this like a global problem?
Yes, maybe it is a global problem, but I see that we are getting more and more international. Mm-hmm. But the main problem I see also on the shareholder side of the supervisory board is that the cultural topic became more and more important. What does it mean? So especially in German, there is you need a deep understanding about our two-tier system. So if you're coming from the States or from UK, and you think you operate the company as a common team, as a board, a common board, then you have a completely different view on the collaboration and leading of a company. So I think it's becoming more and more important that we develop a better understanding about the cultural differences in leading companies. And if we have this understanding, I think then we can also improve the international participation on the shareholder as well on the employee representative side.
No, makes absolute sense. An important topic. Hopefully we sparked some thoughts. What are the three things our listeners should really take away from this short conversation?
I think the major topic is that you need a strong chairman who is able, to arrange a good collaboration between shareholder representatives and employee representatives that begins very easy in an alphabetically seating order, so that the banks are not sitting against together. So this is the first important thing. The second important thing is that you think about your international business model, so that you think about the competences you need on the employee side. And the third topic is that you also understand the weaknesses of the system, and that you bring the weaknesses to a chance in developing the business strategy together into a new way of growth.
Fantastic. Gabriele, thank you so much for contributing to the Better Boards podcast series.
Thank you so much for the talk, Sabine. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening. If you have any thoughts on this podcast, or you would like to see that we cover a specific topic in a future podcast, or if you would like to hear more about our work, because this podcast is a passion project, what we really do is we created a platform for board evaluation, and we provide board evaluation services globally. If you would like to hear more about our work, do get in touch. There are real people behind this. This is not AI generated. Best way to get in touch is via email info@better-boards.com. Many thanks.